All right, this is Pre-Algebra Lesson 1.2, adding integers, and it is part one of a two-part lesson, really foundational in all of your math career. So the things we're going to learn today come up in just about every problem the whole rest of your math career, because we're going to deal with adding integers. And really what we're going to get to in part two is adding positive and negative numbers. Comes up all the time. So really, really foundational. I'm going to try to teach this lesson so you can understand. There's a proverb that says, knowledge is easy to him that understandeth. And hopefully I can get you to understand the concepts here. If you can understand the concepts, then these become very easy. And I've seen in the past, my students have really no trouble at all with positive and negative numbers. They rarely get them wrong because of the methodology that we're going to learn both in part one and part two of lesson 1.2. All right, so let's get going, adding integers. Hopefully you've got a printout of the notes, makes life a little bit easier. And as we go along, then you can just fill in the blanks. All right, adding integers. We're going to first off look at adding integers using a number line. And this is traditional. When you start to learn how to add integers, you start on a number line. All right, on that number line, it is important that you understand that you always have to start at 0. So start at 0. That's always a starting point. It's also important that you understand, all right, excuse me for that sneeze. That's the way it goes. All right, but it's important that you understand that when you have a plus sign or a positive number, then you're always moving to the right. Positive is right. And then when you have a negative sign, a negative number, you're always moving to the left. So positives move right, negatives move left. Pretty simplistic. All right, first off, let's take a look at the aspect of addends. That just means numbers. Addends, numbers with the same signs. All right, numbers with the same signs. Now, go ahead and take your red, put a little red asterisk here, and let's add one thing. As you go about showing the adding on the number line, it is important that you show the solution. And so take your red pen and write, place a dot on the solution. Place a dot on the solution. Place a dot on the solution. And you'll see that here in just a moment. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to take my green here, and underneath the green 3, that's a positive 3, I'm going to put R3 for right 3. And underneath the green 5, I'm going to put R5 for right 5. All right, remember, we start at 0. So I'm going to start at 0. And according to this, I want to go to the right 3. So I'm just going to go to the right 3, right? And above it, I'm just going to put R3. What did I do? I started at 0. I went to the right 3. Now, the next number has to start from where I'm at right now. And where are we right now? We're right here, right? We're at 3. So now I got to do the positive 5 from the 3. And I'm just going 5 paces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 5 paces. I went right 5 more. And I'm going to take my red here, and now where you end up is the solution, and we ended up at 8. And so 8 is the solution. All right, again, make sure that you indicate the solution on the number line with the dot. Okay, that's pretty simple. We can do that. You can do that, right? Easy. Adding on a number line is easy. Okay, here we got a scenario now. Again, we're adding two addends with the same signs. So this one we have negative, so I'm going to take my red. And now I got to go left 2 and left 4, right? Because negatives are to the left. Again, you're starting at 0. And I want to go left 2 spaces. 1, 2. All right, now I am there. Again, I'm going to put L2 over top. All right, got that? So left 2. All right, now remember, where am I at right now? I'm at negative 2. And from negative 2, I've got to go 4 left. Again, I know this is pretty simplistic, but I'm trying to lay a foundation, so hang in there. All right, left 4. And again, where do we end up? That's our final answer. Place a dot on the number, and the final answer is -6, right? So in the first one, the final answer was 8. The second one, the final answer is -6. Let's do another one. All right, same kind of scenario. You want to do it yourself? If you want to, you can pause the video and do this one yourself. All right, if you did it yourself and you're back, we go left 7 and left 2. Again, start at 0. Go left 7. Okay, and now that we're at -7, go left 2 more. And where do we end up at? -9. All right, pretty easy. Not hard at all. Very easy to handle. You can do that. And that's the way all of those end up there. Okay? All right. Let's take a look at the next aspect. All right. How about add-ends with different signs? Add-ends with different signs. What do we do with add-ends with different signs? Well, we treat it exactly the same way. We start at 0, and we simply go left for negatives and right for positives. All right, so I'm going to take my red here. The first number, I have to go left 3. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to go left 3. And here I am right now at -3. All right, let me let you catch up. All right, so start at 0, go left 3, and that's where we're at. Now I'm going to take my green, and underneath the 5, I'm going to say right 5. So remember where you're at. Right now I'm at -3, so I'm going to go above it, because now I have to go right 5. All right, so watch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 5 gets me right there. I'm going to take my red. Where did I end up? At +2. So we just determined that -3 plus 5 is a +2. Right? That's pretty easy. We're just going left and right and seeing where we end up. -3 and +5 is a positive. I want you to watch something. Look at the screen. Don't do this in your notes, but watch something here. These 3 negatives wiped out 3 of the 5 positives. And you know what was left? 2 positives. And what was the answer? +2. That's a lead-in to how we're going to add positive and negative numbers later on without a number line. All right? Without a number line. All right, let's do the next one. So again, I'm going to start with what they give me, which is a +4, so I got to go right 4, right? Where do I always start? At the origin, at 0. I'm going to go right 4 spaces, and that's where I'm at right now, right 4. I'm going to grab my red because now I have to go left 11. So remember, where am I at right now? I'm at 4. So now I got to start going left 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Left 11. And where does left 11 leave you at? -7. Hey, you know what? 4 positives and 11 negatives gives you a -7. And again, don't do this in your notes, but notice how those 4 positives wiped out 4 of the 11 negatives, and it left 7 negatives as the answer. Again, we're going to deal with that later on. You don't need to do that in your notes. You don't need to do homework problems like that. I'm just trying to get you to understand where we're heading and where we're going. All right, let's look at this last problem. You want to do it yourself? Go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and do that yourself, and then turn it back on. I'll show you the answer. All right, if you're back, hopefully we said let's go left 7. So left 7. And then from there, we got to go right 5. Go back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? I'm just counting on that number line. Right 5. And where do we end up? Make sure you put a dot on your final answer on the number line, and we end up at -2. All right? Hey, pretty easy stuff. We've got notes now to look back at. So let's go on to the second page here. All right, adding integers intuitively, and this is the key to everything. All right, you've heard me say it already. Think of the integers as that amount of, I'm going to take my green and write the word positives. Think of the integers as that amount of positives, and I'm going to take my red and write negatives. That amount of positives and negatives. So if you look down here, I've got positive 5 listed as 5 positive sides. So I'm going to take my red, and with my negative 3, I'm going to list it as 3 negatives. If you'll think in terms of how many positives you have and how many negatives you have, life will become so much easier for you in the realm of pre-algebra and later algebra and all of your math career. It really helps simplify everything and will allow you to get things correct. So let me show you how we're going to put that to use. Right now, we're still doing add-ins with the same signs. So we're doing some pretty easy ones. So here's what we've got. This is the way I'm trying to get you to think. The negative 3 is 3 negatives, is it not? Plus a negative 2 is 2 more negatives. Now, here's exactly what we're doing. I want you to answer this question. Listen carefully. This is really hard, so I need you to really focus in. Are you ready? All right, here we go. 3 apples and 2 more apples equals, did you say 5 apples? Oh, wow. You're amazing. Remarkable. Can't believe you're Einstein. Let's try another one. I know these are hard. 3 plums plus 2 plums equals, did you say 5 plums? Oh, remarkable. Amazing. All right, so let's try this. 3 negatives plus 2 negatives. 11 negatives. It's that simple. It's 11 negatives. So underneath, I'm going to write negative 11, circle my answer. That's the answer. 3 negatives and 2 more negatives. Hey, it's 11 negatives. Same kind of problem. All right, really easy. I've got 4 negatives plus 7 more negatives. And what? How did I get 11? What in the world am I thinking? All right, timeouts. I must have looked ahead, was mindlessly doing math. Do you do that? Do you mindlessly do your math? All right, let me go back. All right, take back a look at A. Hey, 3 negatives and 2 more negatives is 5 negatives. You know what I always do with my class? So the answer is -5 and circle your -5. I always tell my class, don't drink the Kool-Aid. You know, everything that's said, you've got to take with a little bit of grain of salt and think, hey, is this making sense? Because you know what? Your teacher's going to make mistakes occasionally as well. And you got to think, does this make sense? Hopefully, -11 didn't make sense to you. And the drink the Kool-Aid is really a reference to a tragic situation in Ghana, East Africa. A man led a bunch of people to Ghana, East Africa. He was actually a false Christ. And he got them to drink Kool-Aid and commit suicide. And they mindlessly followed their leader and drank the Kool-Aid. You know what? I really want you to follow me this year, but don't mindlessly follow me. Think about what's going on because occasionally I'll make a mistake because I was looking at B instead of A. All right, let's do B. 4 negatives and 7 more negatives. That's the 11 negatives. And again, we're going to write then -11. All right, don't mindlessly do problems. All right, why don't you try the last one? Again, pause the video. You can go ahead and do that. And pretty simplistic. All right, if you're back, 7 negatives and 12 more negatives is 19 negatives. And you know what? You know why we can do these? Because we can count. I think we started in kindergarten, probably before that. And so all this is a matter of is just counting. That's all it is. All right. Now let's get down to some nitty gritty. Here's something that you're going to have to be careful about. And, uh, and so, yeah, I'm gonna put a bunch of stars around this thing. I know you can't do that, but be careful of this situation. And here's what I've got. Let me just go back to my red, and you can just do this in red and circle in red. When you have a -7 minus 4, a lot of students goof this up. And what I want you to understand is a negative 7 minus 4. Let me get rid of some of these stars here. Go back to there. Is exactly the same as a negative 7 plus a negative 4. You know, in math, a lot of times mathematicians like to write things as simplistically as possible, with as few characters as possible. And so, you know what they do? They don't include this parentheses. They don't include that parentheses. They don't even include the plus sign. They just write negative 7, negative 4, thinking this, that surely the student will know that negative 7 minus 4 is the same as negative 7 plus a negative 4. So be careful. You have to catch this and you have to recognize this. It's not hard once you understand it. A negative 7 minus. Here's what I tell my students. Keep the sign with the number. So again, watch it. Look at the left one. Look right here. Okay, look right here. This is 7 negatives. This is 4 negatives. Keep the sign with the number. It's that situation. 7 negatives, 4 negatives. If you'll think this way, you're not going to have a problem. So what really is this problem? 7 negatives and 4 more negatives. There we are back to negative 11. All right, it's a negative 11 day. Negative 11 is the answer. Got it? All right, so let's look at these last few examples. So remember, when you see negative 3 minus 14, you have to say to yourself, this is exactly the same thing as a negative 3 plus a negative 14. And really, again, all I get my students to do is to think this. All right, there's 3 negatives plus 14 more negatives. Grand total, 17 negatives. Final answer, negative 17. It's not hard. Can you do the last one? I know you can. What's the last one? Hey, this is 13 negatives and 5 more negatives. Grand total, 18 negatives or negative 18. Listen now, what we're trying to do is train your brain. I'm trying to train your brain to think a specific way. It's going to make life so much easier for you. All right, so let's do a quick recap. What did we look at today? We looked at adding integers using a number line. The key, there's a couple keys now. You got to start at 0. Students mess that up. They don't start at 0. What else do you have to do? You got to remember positive is right and negative is left. Positive is right, is negative is left. And also don't forget, place a dot on the final answer. The final answer is where you end up. And so we did positive and negative numbers. All right, first we did adding. And oh, by the way, look at B. Isn't this 2 negatives and 4 more negatives for a grand total of 6 negatives? Hey, see how that works? Look at C. 7 negatives and 2 more negatives, grand total, 9 negatives. See how that works? And that's how we're going to train our brain. Then we did different signs. We're going to get into adding different signs mathematically on part 2. But we did it with a number line. It's pretty simplistic. Again, start at 0. Positives right, negatives left. Wherever you end up, that's the solution. Don't forget to place a dot there. Then we moved into the aspect of adding intuitively. And again, remember, think of your numbers as that amount of positives and negatives. We went through some of the simplistic examples because we used a parentheses and a plus sign. And then some of the ones where you got to be careful. Hey, D, E, and F are usually the ones students will mess up because they'll forget. Here's what they'll think. All right, last thing I'm going to say here. This is what they'll think. Look at E here. You see this? Look, focus right here. And let me do it this way. I can get you to focus better. If I can get my pen up. Come on, pen. All right. My board is being, oh, because I'm looking in the wrong place. My bad here. Let me get my magic pen. Let me get you to look right here. Okay. You see the negative 3 and the negative 14. Again, when you look at that, you have to think of that as 3 negatives and 14 more negatives. That has to be your thought. And if you can get to the point where you're thinking of that as 3 negatives and 14 more negatives, then you're going to be fine. Here's what students think wrongly. They think -3 subtract 14. Oh, you don't want to think that. You don't want to think -3 subtract 14. Get that thinking out of your mind. Train your brain instead to think 3 negatives and 14 more negatives. Now you're going to get a right answer, 17 negatives. All right? Don't think -3 subtract 14. You're in trouble. Just think 3 negatives and 14 more negatives, and away you go. All right, that's the part 1 of lesson 1.2. It's there now for you to review as many times as you need to, and hopefully you'll come back for part 2 as well. All right, have a great day.